Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I know today's upload is like so late. I decided that I was going to take the first couple of hours for the day for myself. I took a nap. I did my hair, body scrub, everything. So I decided that since today is Mother's Day, I am going to tell the story about my experience as a NICU mom in Jamaica. Alright, so I guess you can say this is part 3 to my labor and delivery story time. So, alright, let's jump right in. So, after I gave birth to my son, they told me that he was having some breathing difficulties and they wanted to take him to the NICU for 2 days for observation. Now, during this time, I was on the ward and I did deliver via C-section, so I would have to be in the hospital for 3 days. So I was there. No one told me the procedures for the NICU, and I thought that it was the same procedure for, you know, people coming to visit mothers on the postnatal ward. So I thought that, you know, you could only go for like 2 hours a day to visit your kid, and nobody told me anything different. I asked some of the what do you call them? Some of the student gynos that were on the ward, and like they basically told me that NICU and postnatal are not friends. So if I needed to know anything, then I should go and ask at the NICU. Alright, so the first night I was there, I was still hooked up to, I was still catheterized, and I was hooked up to medication and stuff. And they don't allow you to go down to the NICU like that because they have a fear that you're gonna tangle your baby up in the wires and choke them or whatever. So yeah, I couldn't go down to see him the day that he was born. So that day I only saw him when they let me see him for a bit after they took him out. The next day, I believe, yes, I was able to go down there and see him. Now, I think I mentioned this before. I did deliver my son at the Spanish Town Hospital, and the Spanish Town Hospital NICUs it has 3 levels. Don't quote me on this because it's been a while ago and I don't remember, but I believe the 3 levels were like intensive care, intermediate care, and low care. So if that's not exactly what the levels are called, it's, you know, about, you get the gist. So when I went down to see him, he was in extensive care, and I had no idea why. Like I said, I delivered him on his due date, and you know, the only issue is that he was breech and whatever. So he was there. He had a little oxygen mask on, and he was in his cot. And I don't know if this is because it was the intensive care part of the NICU, but they never offered any chairs to sit. He was just standing there and looking at him, talking to him and stuff, getting him acclimatized to my voice. And then when an hour had passed, I believe when an hour had passed, I went back up to the postnatal ward. So there was a nurse there, and she was sitting nearby, and I asked her when I would be able to get him because, you know, he looked pretty fine to me. There were babies on the ward that were getting oxygen on the postnatal ward with their moms. So I'm like, if it's just a case where he needed oxygen, then, you know, why not let me have him? So she told me that she was not able to comment on when babies were getting discharged. So I would need to speak to one of the pediatricians. So I went back out into the lobby area of the NICU, and I saw the pediatrician that had let me know what was gonna be happening after I had delivered him. I asked him what happened. He said that he isn't the pediatrician who is monitoring the babies, and those ones usually come in the morning between, let's just say he said 10 and 12. I don't remember the exact time, but he said that it was in the morning. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went back up to my bed in the postnatal ward, and this was visiting hours, so my family was there, and I was having a conversation with my mom, and then she was like, look, you have milk. So when I looked down, my chest was covered in milk. I didn't even feel it coming in. Like, no, I have been nursing my son for going 17 months now, and I can feel when the milk is coming in, but I don't know if because that was the very first time it happened, I never felt it. So I was full of milk, breasts were engorged, and I couldn't nurse because he was downstairs in the NICU. So the next day I go again to visit him, and at this point he was no longer in the intensive care part, he was now in intermediate care. So he was just in a normal little cot. He had other people clothes on, which I was very pissed off about, and I mentioned this in my hospital bag video that they stole the receiving blanket and the chemise that I gave for him. They stole it, and he was in other people's clothes. So I guess that this is a norm for them. So when babies go to the NICU, you know, for tax, they take whatever clothes the baby's mom brings for them and use it as NICU clothes. But I was kind of pissed off because I'm like, I'm literally upstairs. If you need clothes for the baby, you can come and get me. But I guess they knew I wasn't going to get them back, so they never asked. So he was in other people's clothes, other babies' clothes. So at this point, a really nice nurse came. I wish I got her name, but this was so I was so distraught and angry at this time that I never thought to get the lady's name. But she was a really nice nurse, and she came and she let me know that I can get a chair and sit and look at him and hold him once he wakes up. They have this policy that you're not supposed to hold your baby when they're sleeping in the NICU, because they say that if your baby has to stay there for an extended period of time and you hold them while they're sleeping, they'll get used to it, and they'll cry and cry and cry when you leave because none of your nurses are going to hold them. So they were saying don't hold them while they're sleeping, so I couldn't hold him while he was sleeping. So I went and I asked one of the other nurses if I could pump breast milk for him, because they had a sign saying that you're not supposed to breastfeed without permission, which it still tickles me to this day, because how you're going to tell me that I need permission to breastfeed my own kid? It was not making sense. So I didn't ask about breastfeeding because he was like hooked up to IVs and stuff. So I asked if I could pump, and they said sure. So if you're familiar with pre-mixed formula, they had a couple of pre-mixed formula bottles, and I believe that they were like 4 ounces each, or I believe no, they were less than 4 ounces. I'm gonna say they were like 2 ounces each. And they're saying that if I wanted to, I can go and express milk in the pumping room. Yes, they had a pumping room. Thumbs up for that. And they'll give it to my baby when I leave. But the only thing I didn't really like about this is that they limit each mother to pumping 3 of those things. So they feed their baby like every 2 to 3 hours out of a little you know, the medicine cups. Yes, they feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours out of one of those, and once your breast milk was all gone, they would automatically default to formula. Now, my son never liked formula that much, at least. And the NICUs in Jamaica, they automatically give Enfamil preemie formula, and he was not a preemie. And um, this is unrelated, and maybe I will go into details in another video. But Enfamil formula is not all that nice. It's not tasty. So if your baby is breastfed, breast milk is sweet, and they will get used to that flavor. They will not like the Enfamil formula because they don't sweeten it, which is good, but their baby's not gonna like it because it's not what they're used to. So I had pumped the milk, and then the really nice nurse, she would come and give me one of the little medicine cups and tell me that I should feed him from that. So I'd always try, but he'd never drink it. And the nurse come and she's like, you don't want your baby to go home with you, come, let me feed him for you. So she takes him, and she takes the cup, and she holds him and tosses it down his throat. And I am distraught because I'm a first time mom. My son is the first baby I've really interacted with, and I'm like, why is this lady throwing the formula down my baby's throat? But she explained that they're watching him and his diet. Hold on. Yes, they were monitoring him and his feeding habits, so they had to document every time he ate and how much, and if he vomited it up afterwards. So she was saying that if he's not eating, then they can't send him home with me. So I'm like, okay, cool. So once she did that, she wrote it down in his chart, and then she picked him up and he started hitting his back to burp him so hard. I'm like, so he burps and she hands him back over, and the day goes along. These days were really like remarkable because it was basically just sitting down and watching my son in a cot pooping and stuff. So he stayed in intermediate care for 2 days. They had him on drip with saline and a calcium drip. I don't remember, it was hydro whatever. And they always had his docket under the thing, but we're not allowed to read them. And they kept telling me that if I wanted to know why my baby was being held there for longer than 2 days, I would have to speak to the pediatrician. So that was day 3. Day 3. Day 4, I was no longer in the hospital. They had discharged me, and I was very upset that I wasn't going to go home with my son, but it was what it was. And I did come, I went there every day to look for him. So he spent 2 to 3 days in intermediate care. That nurse would come in and do the same thing every day, offer for me to feed him, and then if he didn't take it, then she would feed him, and I let her make me burp him after that first incident. So yeah, so the last day he was in there, she was coming and she was talking and stuff. His dad was there too, and she was telling us that she really wants the baby to go home with us, so she's going to help us out. So she went to one of the Spanish speaking nurses and told her that the baby is eating and he can come off of the drip, because apparently he could not go over to the next side if he was still on the drip. So I guess they went and did whatever documentation and paperwork they had to do, and maybe like 20-30 minutes later they came and moved his cot over into low care. So I was stoked about this because So we're in day 5 now. Yes, I was stoked about this because that meant that he would be going home soon. Now, my baby was born a week before Christmas, so I wanted to get him to bring home before Christmas, because how am I going to come and visit him on Christmas Day? And nobody wants to have their kid in the NICU on Christmas Day, so I wanted to get him before that. So the first day when he went over to the medium care, and now at this point, I believe 2 days prior, we had learned that we could come and visit way earlier than I had previously thought. I previously thought that visiting hours were from 12 to 1 and then 5 to 6 like the postnatal ward, but one day decided to just not leave after the first hour, and nobody came and said anything to us. So we asked, and they said that visiting hours for the NICU is literally from 8:30 to 7 p.m. Like, I feel like once you have a baby in the NICU, they're gonna put your baby in the NICU. They need to let you know everything that is involved with that, because why would you have the parents in the dark for days and not let them know that they can come and visit their kid earlier than they would think? So you're going from 8:30 to 7:30 to visit him every day. So the second day, I believe, when he was in medium care, I think this is day 6 now, I see a pediatrician finally, and I asked her why he was still there. Now, this hospital is a teaching hospital, and I don't know why, but the actual doctors never get involved in what is happening unless it's life or death situation. So if it's just like a regular whatever, they'll always have you go to the student one. Now, this girl, she was real sweet, but I feel like when I asked her the question, she had never been questioned by a parent before, so she didn't really know how to answer, and she got nervous. So she started talking to me in medical jargon, a situation where like her professor or whatever came and asked her a question and she was answering. That was how she was answering me. So needless to say, I didn't get anything out of what she was saying outside of my kid is in here for observation basically. So I said okay, and I thanked her because she did her best, and then we went about the day. So being a NICU mom, you always have to wear the disposable gowns. The ones that they had at the Spanish Hospital, they are blue. So every time when you go in, you have to put on a disposable gown. Then you put it in a little wash basket or whatever at the end of the day. You have to sanitize every time you leave the room that your baby is in and come back. They did not allow phones. If you wanted to take a picture of your kid, you had to hide and do it. If they catch you taking a picture on your phone, they will stop you and tell you that there is a bunch of germs on your phone and they don't want you to touch your phone and then touch the baby, because it's going to make the baby sick and make the baby have to stay in there longer. So no phones are allowed unless you wanted to risk it. You're not allowed to hold your baby until they are awake. You're not allowed to nurse unless you have been given the okay by the nurse that's on duty. You can only pump 3 bottles of breast milk a day for your child. When they are there, nobody will give you a date of discharge for your child. So you just have to keep walking with clothes every day in case they tell you that you can go home with your baby. Now, in Jamaica, they have baby passports now. So your baby passport will always be on their cot, but you're not allowed to take it up You're not allowed to look in it, which is dumb because at the end of the day, it's going home with you. You're gonna see the contents of it anyway, but they don't allow you to take it up. I later found out that they didn't let me take up my sons. I can't speak for the other moms there, but my sons, they didn't let me take it up because it was empty. They didn't fill it out, and the charge nurse, I guess that's what she is, she filled it out right before he got discharged. So they give you a list of instructions, care for your baby. They brief you on how to go about filling out the parent part of the passport, and then they give you a little slip telling you that you need to come back for a ward review with your baby within 2 weeks. So I did get that slip and I did go back for a ward review with my baby the next 2 weeks. That's a whole different story in itself. I believe that he went back to get his ward review done 3 times, and we were supposed to go back and forth, but I decided not to, and to just take him to a pediatrician. So yeah, no, I know that this story wasn't all that interesting, but I know I did promise you to talk about my experience as a NICU mom in Jamaica. I hope this puts your mind at ease somewhat if you are fearing that situation, because if your baby is born premature, more than likely they're gonna end up in the NICU. If there's any complication, more than likely your baby's gonna end up in the NICU, and nobody gave me any information regarding being a NICU mom. So I just decided to share my experience here, so it would help any other mother that is going through the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that this happens in every hospital. Like I said, this is my experience at this specific hospital, and I live in the southeastern regional health vicinity, so I can only speak for that vicinity for sure. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to leave a like and a comment below if you liked it. Tell me what could be better, what you would like to see next. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.